and welcome to Home Studies, e-learning for Cambridge English Advanced. As I've said in my previous videos, this is a C1 qualification that shows you have the language skills that employers and universities are looking for. It is a thorough test of all areas of language ability. My name is Natalie, and I'm here to introduce you to collocations. Have you ever heard of collocations before? The word itself might be new to you, but I'm sure you hear and use them every day. In this module, it's our goal for you to make a habit of using collocations naturally and frequently, just like a native English speaker would. And by the way, to make a habit of something is an example of a collocation. Now, the problem with learning lists of words from a dictionary is that you might know the word, you might be able to define the word, but you don't know how to use it. You don't know how it fits with other words in a sentence. And this can be a problem. So imagine you come across, for example, the word rapport. So that is R-A-P-P-O-R-T, but that T is silent, okay? So go ahead and repeat that for me, rapport. One more time, rapport. Yes. So you check the dictionary and you see it means a relationship in which people like, understand, and respect each other. So you've got a new word, you've got the pronunciation, you've got the meaning, but how do you put it in a sentence? Okay, and that is where collocations come into it. All right, so in English, we say, for example, you have rapport with someone, or you build rapport with someone. And in terms of adjectives, we can say a good or a close rapport. So all of these examples show how the word collocates with other words in English. Think of making collocations like building Lego blocks. I don't know if you play or played with Lego, but you know how you put the Lego pieces together? That's how you need to put together all of the pieces of the sentence to construct a lovely, solid sentence in English. So as you can see, collocations is a big topic. It's an exciting topic, and we have a lot of work to do. So shall we get started? Great. Okay, I'll see you in the first video.
In this video, we'll take a look at collocations part 1. We're going to practice identifying, defining, and using common collocations in English. The ability to combine or link words naturally is important for your exam, but also for real life. Before you get started, it's a good idea to print out the PDF handout of this unit so you can easily make notes and underline key information during the tasks. Or if you don't have a printer, you can download it to a different device and use a highlighting tool for note-taking.
So first of all, what are collocations? Well, a collocation is a pair or group of words that are often used together. There are no rules on how these collocations are formed. They simply sound right to a native speaker. For example, in English, we take a quick shower, not a fast shower, and we eat fast food, not quick food. So even though fast and quick are synonyms, we use them with different collocations or different word pairings. So you can see why you have to make a special effort to learn these collocations, because they are not always logical and they can often be difficult to guess.
Said, it is definitely worth the effort to learn collocations for a number of important reasons. Firstly, using collocations is a great way to improve your fluency and make you sound more natural in English. What's more, if you know the right collocations, you'll make fewer mistakes in speaking and writing. For example, the words commit and crime go together. People will probably understand what you mean if you talk about someone making a crime, but your language will sound unnatural and it might be a little bit confusing. Collocations can also make your language more colorful. For example, in the speaking test, instead of just saying you agree with your partner, you could say you strongly, you heartily, you absolutely, you completely agree with what they have said. It's a very good idea to learn languages in chunks or blocks of words. So a strong grasp on collocations will help you to learn phrases and idioms more easily and efficiently. And this will help you to achieve a better mark in your advanced exam. So, time for a warm-up task. Look at the paragraph and highlight or underline the collocations that you can find. There are 12 in total, so see how many of those you can hunt down. All right, so pause the video and press play when you're ready. Now let's go over your answers. All the collocations in the text are highlighted in green. Compare these answers to yours and see how many of them you got correct. So, how did you do? How many did you get? Okay, I'm sure you have a few questions about the meaning of some of these, so let's take a look at those on the next page. Now let's focus on 4 of the collocations from the previous text. I'd like you please to think of definitions and examples for each of these collocations. Don't worry if you are not sure about the meanings. The idea is that you try and guess or deduce the meaning from the context that you've just read. So pause the video and press play when you're ready. Let's go over your answers. So an avid traveler is someone who really loves to travel. They have a passion for traveling. We can also say, for example, that someone is an avid reader or an avid golfer. So it just means that they have a keen interest in that activity. So my personal example would be, I'd say I'm an avid traveler. I've been to over 30 countries. A tourist trap is a place that is crowded and overpriced and pretty much designed for tourists. So, for example, I would avoid Cancun in the high season. It's a total tourist trap. Hordes of tourists refers to large groups of tourists. So my example is the hordes of tourists in Venice are a nightmare for the locals. And finally, to hit the beach. So this is just an informal way of saying that you go to the beach. So an example, in summer, my friends and I often hit the beach at the weekend. As you can see, all of my examples are personalized. They are all true based upon my personal experiences or my opinions. This makes it easier for you to remember the meaning of the word if they are relatable to you personally. In this course, we don't have time to go over all of the collocations you might come across in the exam. There are just too many of them. I'm here instead to help you to figure them out on your own. And the first important step here is to understand how to use a learner's dictionary. So in my opinion, the 3 best ones are Cambridge, Oxford or Macmillan learner dictionaries, and you can easily find all of these online. Any good learner dictionary will give you information on collocations, specifically definitions and examples in graded language. So that's language that you will find it easy to understand, all right? So it's language for learners rather than for native speakers. It will highlight the information in some way. So usually the collocations will be in bold or in italics. And it will tell you if a collocation is formal or informal. So you know when, where, and how you can use a particular one. Here is a sample of a dictionary entry. So the word that you've looked up is goal. All right, so there you can see it's a noun and it's a countable noun. So therefore we could say a goal or many goals. There is the phonetic transcription for goal, which as you can see is the same in British and American English. Then we have the definition of goal, as I said before, in graded language. And then the collocations, or the most common collocations that we would find with goal. These are all in bold with examples in italics. So this is all kind of usable language that you could put into your essays or incorporate into your speaking. Here is another dictionary entry. This time it's informal. If it doesn't specifically say formal or informal in the dictionary entry, then you can assume that the word or phrase is neutral and it can be used in most situations. So as you can see, sickie is a noun and it's in British English. I'm not sure to what extent Americans would know what a sickie was. So you can see there only the phonetics in British English. Then we have a collocation, for example, to throw a sickie. And as in the previous entries, we have the definition in bold and we have the example in italics. Now it's time to do some practice. Try to find 4 common collocations for each of the words below. You can use a Good Learner dictionary to help you. These are just a small sample of some of the collocations that can be made using the words on the list. So for vast, we can say things like vast experience, vast knowledge, vast majority, vast amount, or indeed vast number of something. For chance, we don't say big or small. We say, for example, slim or slight chance, a good chance. In terms of the verb, you could say get a chance or you miss your chance to do something. With the adverb strongly, it would collocate mostly with verbs. So for example, strongly support, strongly object, strongly suggest, or strongly disapprove of something. And pain has a huge number of collocations that you would be able to find in a learner dictionary. Some examples include constant or sharp pain, aches and pains, with the verbs to suffer from pain or to ease the pain. So these are just a few of the examples which you can make a note of in your notebook. In English, we have both strong and weak collocations. Strong collocations are word pairings that we would expect to go together, such as combinations with make or do. These are pretty common. So for example, you make a cup of tea, but you do your homework. The example of taking a photo is a good one. Many candidates say make a photo, but this is wrong. Photo rarely collocates with any other verb, and no other verb to give the same meaning as take in this example. Weak collocations, on the other hand, can go with many other words, often to give a similar meaning. For example, in English we would have a party, so have rather than make a party. To make a party is a mistake. So you could have a party, but you could also hold a party, or throw a party, or organize a party. And all of these have really similar meanings.
Another example would be a deep sleep. So this is a sleep when you really wouldn't wake up easily. But deep can collocate with a lot of other nouns. For example, deep water, a deep cut, a deep breath, a deep voice, deep roots, or even a deep understanding of something. So these are all examples of weak collocations. In your notebook, why not try to make some collocation forks? So these are a helpful way of recording strong collocations. You have here, for example, the adjective deafening, and then 3 nouns that would commonly collocate with this adjective. So we have a deafening applause, a deafening noise, a deafening explosion. You can see that these are all examples of things that we would hear, things that are very loud, all right? But there aren't that many nouns that do collocate with deafening. So this is why it is a strong collocation set. Now it's time for you to make your own collocation fork using the adjective irreversible. So in case you don't know, irreversible means that it's something that is not possible to change. It's impossible for it to go back to how it was in the past. So try to think of 3 examples of strong collocations with irreversible and use a learner dictionary to help you. Pause the video and press play when you're ready to review. Okay, how did you do? On this list, we have the collocations irreversible damage, irreversible impact, or irreversible decision. Did you have any of those? They are not the only examples of collocations with irreversible, however, they are pretty common ones. In the exam, if you use weak or strong collocations, you are more likely to get a good mark. So why don't we practice your speaking a little bit? Read the questions and then say your answers aloud. If you can, record yourself speaking on a mobile device and then listen back. Try to see if you've used the collocations in your answers and think of ways that you could upgrade your speaking to make your answers more suitable to C1. So press pause on the video and then play when you're ready to continue. For strong collocations, we use a collocation fork. However, when we are recording weak collocations, it's better to use a collocation bubble simply because you can record more examples. So in this case, we've got a collocation bubble with the noun chance. There are many collocations with chance in English, so these are just some examples. To take a chance, to have or get the chance, to pass up the chance, to give someone a chance, to jump at the chance, or to miss your chance. If any of these are new, then take a minute to check in your learner dictionary to make sure you understand the meaning. On the next slide, we're going to do some practice speaking with these collocations. Same story as before. Read the questions and then say your answers out loud. Record them if you can, and then listen back after you have finished speaking to hear how well you were able to answer the questions. Pause the video and press play when you are ready to continue. Now it's time for you to make your own collocation bubble using the adjective heavy. So remember, heavy is used for saying that there is a lot of something, but also that something is very severe. Okay, so there's 2 common meanings for the adjective. Try to think of 6 examples and record them on your diagram. Use a learner dictionary to help you. Again, there are many collocations in English with heavy, so this is just a sample of some common ones. For example, heavy traffic, a heavy cold, a heavy sleeper, drinker, smoker, heavy rain or heavy snow, a heavy workload, or heavy losses. How many of those did you have on your collocation bubble? One of the most common mistakes that candidates make is misusing collocations with do or make. So let's look at two examples where the collocations are correct. For example, Alejandro is making progress with his English, or will do an exercise on collocations in a moment. So in English, we make progress, but we do an exercise. Just remember that the basic meaning of make is about producing something. So for example, you make a meal, you make a plan. And the basic meaning of do is about performing an action. So you do a sport or you do your homework. There are obviously exceptions to this, but this is a good general guideline to follow. During the speaking exam, there will be many opportunities for you to show that you know how to use collocations correctly. An example of this would be in the interview in part 1. If the examiner asks you a question like, are you a decisive person? Then you could use the collocation to make a decision. For example, you could say, I try to be, but it's not always easy to make the right decision. To say do the right decision, in this case, would be a mistake. Let's see how many collocations with do or make you know. In this activity, form collocations with the words in bold by writing do or make in the correct forms. So pause the video and press play when you are ready to review. Let's go over your answers and see how many of them you got right. So in number 1, we have make changes, and it's in the present continuous because of that keyword currently. In number 2, we have make an effort, and here we use the present perfect because of the keyword recently. In number 3, we have do someone a favor. In number 4, we have make an excuse. In number 5, we have do more harm than good. And in number 6, we have do a course, here in the past perfect, because it happened before another action in the past. Let's now practice using collocations with do or make in your speaking. As before, read the question and then say your answer aloud. If you can, record your speaking on a device and then listen back to your answers. See how you could potentially improve them to upgrade your speaking. Okay, so pause the video and press play when you're ready to continue. So that brings us to the end of Collocations Part 1. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found the video to be helpful. Before I go, however, I would just like to leave you with one final tip, and that is to train your brain. So the idea is that you keep recognizing and keep learning collocations when you go about your life. All right, so when you are reading something, try to recognize collocations as you go. When you're watching a documentary or a movie with subtitles, try to make a note of the collocations that you hear. And it's a good idea to keep a dictionary on your phone so that you can easily look for the meaning and make a note of these collocations that you come across. It's better than using an online translator, as collocations don't always translate well into other languages. Okay, and then also by searching for a word in a dictionary, you can get examples of 2 or more words with the target collocation that you've looked for. So you won't just be getting the one collocation, you could get enough for a collocation fork or a collocation bubble. Okay, so we'll leave it there. Please do the practice activities and the quizzes, and I will see you in the next video. In this video, we'll take a look at collocations part 2. We're going to continue practicing how to identify, define, and use common collocations in English. As I said before, it's a good idea to print out the PDF handout of this unit so you can easily make notes and underline key information during the tasks. Or if you don't have a printer, you can download it to a different device and use a highlighting tool for note-taking. In English, there are several different types of collocation or collocation combinations. So in this intro slide, I'm just going to give you some examples orally. So if you want to get a pen and take notes in your notebook, that might be a good idea. We'll look at all of these in more detail through the video. Number 1 is the adjective-noun combination. So examples of this are an only child, a strong wind, or a heated discussion. Number 2 is a noun-noun combination. For example, a film critic, a family hotel, or a blanket of fog. Number 3 is the verb-noun combination. These are very common in English. For example, to do research, to make a mistake, or to have fun. Number 4 is the verb-adverb combination. For example, to whisper softly, to wander aimlessly, or to fail miserably. And number 5, we have the adverb-adjective combination. For example, highly unlikely, completely exhausted, or utterly ridiculous. There are other categories, but these are the most common, and these are the ones that we'll focus on for the rest of the video. Right, so let's take a look at some sentences about my best friend Emma. We're going to practice identifying the collocation combinations in each of the sentences, and these are all highlighted in blue. So she is musically gifted. This is an example of an adverb-adjective combination. She has an eclectic taste in music. This is an example of an adjective-noun combination. She plays gigs. This is an example of a verb-noun combination. She is really into the music scene. This is a noun-noun combination. And finally, she works tirelessly. This is a verb-adverb combination. Now it's your turn to try and identify the combinations in these examples. All of the collocation combinations are highlighted in blue. Pause the video and press play when you are ready to continue. Take a moment to check your answers. Okay, so how many of them did you get right? As you know from Collocations video part 1, this is a collocation bubble. Your task now is to make a collocation bubble for the word highly. Try to think of 6 adverb-adjective combinations that could fit. If you need help or are looking for some ideas, why not use a learner dictionary? So press pause and then press play
when you're ready to review. There are many examples of collocations with highly in English. These are just a sample of the high frequency ones, which it might be worth remembering and trying to use. So for example, we have highly recommend, highly likely or unlikely, highly motivated, highly educated or highly qualified, highly unusual, or highly effective or ineffective. So how many of these ones did you have on your list? As I said in video 1, using collocations in your speaking is a really good way to improve your mark. So in this practice activity, read the questions and say your answers aloud. If you can, record yourself speaking on a mobile device and then play it back. Listen to your answers and think how you could upgrade them by using collocations to make them more suitable for C1. So pause the video and press play when you are ready to continue. Now it's time to practice identifying collocation combinations in more detail. So for this task, look at the paragraph and highlight or underline the verb noun collocations. So you are looking for 6 in total. Press pause and then play when you're ready to continue. The verb noun collocations in this activity are to catch a cold, to suffer from asthma, to alleviate the symptoms, to contract COVID, to show symptoms, and to run some tests. So how many of those were you able to find? Now look at the paragraph and highlight or underline the noun collocations. Again, you are looking for 6 in total. Press pause and then press play when you're ready to continue. The noun combinations are a film buff, a sneak peek, a film trailer, a critic review, the big screen, or special effects. So how many of those did you manage to find? And remember, if any of these noun collocations are new to you, why not go into your Learner Dictionary, check the meaning, and then add them to your notebook. Finally, look at the paragraph and highlight or underline the adjective noun collocations. Once again, you are looking for 6 in total. Press pause and then play when you're ready to continue. The adjective noun combinations are an absolute fortune, a religious icon, an oval face, a flawless complexion, a striking feature, and an enigmatic smile. So did you manage to find all 6 of those? If any of the words are new to you, dip into your Learner Dictionary, find the meaning, and as always, add them to your notebook. Using a wide range of collocations and using them correctly is really important for the speaking and the writing component of the advanced exam. It is also very important when it comes to the use of English, and in particular, the use of English Part 4. So this is where they give you a word and you need to transform the sentence using the word given. Often the word given requires you to use a collocation in the transformation activity. So read the instructions, read the example, and do the exam style task. Press pause and then play again when you're ready to review. So, how did you find that task?
Was it difficult? Use of English Part 4 is known for being a really challenging part of the CAE exam. So if you did find it difficult, don't worry, you are not alone. Okay, so take a moment to go over your answers, check the collocations carefully, and please do pay attention to your spelling because in the advanced exam, this does count, okay? And in the exam, each of your answers is worth 2 marks. Okay, so press pause on the video and play again when you're ready to continue. Binomials are a type of expression in which 2 words are joined by a conjunction or a linking word. So these can be things like and, or, but, etc. And is the most common one when it comes to binomials. The order of the 2 words is always fixed. For example, we say, I listen to rock and roll music, not roll and rock. Or we say a situation is black and white, not white and black. So the order of binomials is irreversible. A good example of a binomial is neat and tidy. So these are 2 adjectives that are joined by the conjunction and. So let's take a look at 3 more sentences. Can you identify the binomials in these examples? Press pause on the video and then play again when you're ready to review. The first binomial is peace and quiet. This means there is complete silence, no interruptions, no stress or disturbance. The second binomial is sooner or later. So this means at some non-specific time in the future. And the third binomial is back to front. So this means with the front part at the back, usually an item of clothing. So how many of those binomials did you manage to find? Time for another practice task. So here there are 6 binomials in blue. So can you firstly fill in the missing words and then secondly try to define the meanings. So some of these you might know and some of these you might simply need to guess. Press pause on the video and play again when you're ready to review. So how did you get on with that task? Did you know many of them or were they all new to you? Well, let's go over them and see if we can clarify any questions you have. Number 1, the binomial is do's and don'ts. So these are the rules or the instructions that you would have for doing an activity. Number 2, the binomial is pros and cons. So these are the advantages and disadvantages in a situation. Number 3 is safe and sound. So this binomial means that someone or something is completely safe and free from harm. Number 4 is sick and tired of something. So this means that you have simply had enough of it. You are annoyed by it, you are fed up by it, and you do not want to do this or have this anymore. Number 5 is now and again. So this means not very often, but only from time to time. And number 6 is the hustle and bustle. So this is the noise, the activity, generally associated with city life. Using binomials is a very good way to impress the examiner in your speaking exam. So for example, in part 1 in the interview, if they ask you about your neighborhood and you give an answer like, there are a couple of things I don't like about it, but generally it's a nice place to live, you could upgrade that answer and instead of saying generally, you could use the binomial by and large, which has the same meaning. So you could say, there are a couple things I don't like about it, but by and large, it's a nice place to live. And that is a very good C1 answer. On that note, let's practice your speaking. So, read the questions and say your answers aloud. If you can, record them and then play them back to see how well you answered the questions. It's a really good opportunity to try and include these common binomials in your answer, because the more you say them, the more you use them, the more likely you will be to remember them in your exam. So press pause on the video and play again when you're ready to continue. So that brings us to the end of Collocations Part 2. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you found it helpful. Before we end this video though, I've got one top tip for you. Why don't you make flashcard sets to help you memorize all of the collocations you're learning? There are lots of free web tools or sticky notes, for example, that you can use to make these collocation sets, and then when you practice, they would really help them to stick in your mind. So if this sounds like something that could help you, why don't you go ahead and give it a go? In addition, there are a number of practice tasks and quizzes for you to do to consolidate everything we've learned in this video. So good luck, and I'll see you in video part 3. In this video, we'll take a look at collocations part 3. We're going to look at how collocations can make your English more interesting, more dynamic, and more colorful. As I said in the previous videos, it's a good idea to print out the PDF handout of this unit so you can easily make notes and underline key information during the tasks. Or if you don't have a printer, you can download it to a different device and use a highlighting tool for note-taking. Let's start with a short warm-up task to revise the material that we covered in the previous video. Look at the text and highlight or underline the collocations you can find. There are 11 in total. Okay, if you would like to make a note, there are 7 verb-noun collocation combinations, there are 2 adjective-noun combinations, and there are 2 adverb-adjective collocations. So pause the video and press play when you're ready to review. Take a moment to go over your answers. All of the collocations are highlighted in green. Okay, so how many of those did you manage to find? If any of these collocations are new or you don't know the meaning of any of the words in the text, then dip into your Learner Dictionary, find the definitions and add them to your notebook. As I've mentioned before in the previous videos, using a wide range of collocations can really help to improve your mark in the speaking test. So this is what we would like to practice now. Read the question, focusing on the collocation in blue, then say your answer aloud. If possible, record yourself speaking, and when you play it back, listen to how well you answered the question. Think about ways you could upgrade your answer, and if possible, try to use the collocations in your speaking. This will help you to commit them to memory. So, pause the video and press play when you're ready to move on. The big question in this video is, how can I spice up my English? That is, to make it more colorful or more interesting. So if you remember only one thing from this video, I ask that you remember this. Please stop saying very. Very
or really in English are very boring adverbs. You should definitely try to find other ways of showing emphasis, especially in your advanced exam. For example, instead of saying you were very tired, you could say you were completely exhausted. You can say a film was highly entertaining rather than really entertaining. And don't say you did something stupid. You could say you did something utterly stupid. So you get the idea. These alternatives collocate strongly with specific words, and other combinations sound quite unnatural in English. So it's important to make a note of any ones that you come across and try to actively use them in your speaking and writing. The job of intensifying adverbs is to make the meaning of adjectives stronger. So for example, you could say Claire keeps her flat really clean, or you could intensify it and make it more interesting by saying she keeps it spotlessly clean. So spotlessly is an example of an intensifying adverb. Can you identify the adverbs in these examples? Press pause on the video and play when you're ready to review. The intensifying adverbs in these sentences are ridiculously, bitterly, and strongly. Did you get all of those? Well, the important point to remember here is that these collocate strongly with the adjectives that they go before. So they are fixed word pairings in English. So we say ridiculously expensive, bitterly disappointed, strongly recommend something. And you can't really mix and match those without them starting to sound unnatural. So in your notebook, when you write down an intensifying adverb, also write the adjectives that naturally collocate with them.
Your task now is to make a collocations bubble for the adverb utterly. So try to think of 6 adverb-adjective combinations that could work. If you need some help or are looking for some inspiration, why not use a learner dictionary to help you? So press pause and then press play again when you are ready to review. Here are just some of the adjectives which collocate with utterly, utterly meaning completely or extremely. For example, utterly devastated, utterly furious, utterly amazed, utterly unreasonable, utterly exhausted, or utterly ridiculous. So, how many of these did you have on your list?
Time for another task. Change the sentences using appropriate intensifying adverbs. So you have highly, strongly, wildly, greatly, absolutely, and ridiculously. Most of these form strong collocation pairings. So when you think about your answers, do pay attention to the words in blue. Pause the video and press play when you're ready to review.
Let's now check the collocations with intensifying adverbs. Number 1 is to be wildly exaggerated. Number 2, someone is highly educated. Number 3, someone can be strongly opposed to something. Number 4, you can think that something is ridiculously bad. Number 5, you can be absolutely delighted about something. And number 6, something can be greatly appreciated. So how many of these did you get right? As you know, adverbs can be used to strengthen the meaning of adjectives. These are intensifying adverbs, or to weaken them, and these are the softening adverbs. So let's take an example from Twitter. You could say someone's tweet was deeply offensive. This is an intensifier. It means it was extremely offensive. Or you could say the tweet was mildly offensive, and this is a softener. It means it was just a little bit offensive. Do you remember what I said about very being boring? Well, the same is true for quite. In the exam, you aren't going to impress the examiner by saying something is quite nice or quite interesting. Oh no. Again, you need to upgrade your English and use a variety of other adverbs. So, can you identify the adverbs in these examples? Press pause on the video and play when you're ready to continue. The softening adverbs in these examples are loosely, faintly, and somewhat. So as you can see, and as you probably know, adverbs usually end in ly, but not necessarily. So somewhat is also an example of an adverb. Can you think of any other examples? Your task now is to make a collocation bubble for the softening adverb slightly. So try to think of 6 adverb-adjective combinations that you know, and if you need some help or you need some more ideas, why don't you use a learner dictionary to help you? Slightly is a very, very common adverb in English. It means a little or not very much. So it can collocate with a whole range of adjectives. Some examples we have are to be slightly ill or unwell, slightly upset, slightly worried, slightly taller, shorter, bigger, smaller. So they're using a comparative adjective, slightly surprised, or slightly injured. As I said, these are just some of the examples. Did you get any of these? How many of them are on your list? Time for another task. In this activity, rewrite the underlined part of each sentence using appropriate softening adverbs. Now, there might well be more than one right answer, so just write down the one that you think sounds like a good collocation. Press pause on the video and play again when you're ready to review. Let's take a look at some of the suggested answers. There might be other adverbs that work in these examples, so if your one is not here, then you can check in a dictionary or check with a teacher to see if your collocation is a natural one. So for number 1, we have loosely based. Number 2, we can say mildly or faintly ridiculous. Number 3, we can say mildly or somewhat surprised. For number 4, we can say slightly or somewhat disappointed. And for number 5, we could say something is slightly different than something else. It's time now to get into the topic of register. Have you heard that term before? Imagine you're at a fast food restaurant with friends and you want the ketchup. So you'd say, "Can you pass me the ketchup?" But this would not be appropriate if you wanted to ask for salt at a business dinner with an important client. Then you would say, "Would you mind passing me the salt?" So these are 2 examples of register, which is the kind of language you should use in different situations. Our choice of register depends on what we are talking about. So for example, business, the news, or our neighbors. Who we are talking to, whether it's friends, strangers, or your manager at work. And how we are talking to them. So in an email, in a formal letter, at a business meeting, or at the pub. The register of most language is neutral, and this means it can be used in any situation. It could also be formal or informal, and it's important to practice using these in the right context so that you get the tone exactly right. Register is important for both written and spoken language, so it's really important to pay attention to this in your exam as well. Any good learner's dictionary will tell you if a word is formal or informal. In other words, they will tell you about the register of that word. So, for example, in this dictionary entry, the verb to commence is formal. It means to begin or to start something. So you know from this entry that you could use commence in formal writing or formal conversation. This, on the other hand, is an example of an informal dictionary entry. It's a British word, stiff meaning very much. So, for example, you could be bored stiff, scared stiff, worried stiff. It's the kind of language that would be great to integrate into an informal email or letter to a friend in the exam, for example. If in the dictionary it doesn't specify if it's formal or informal, you know the word is neutral, and then it can be used in a wide variety of contexts. The ability to identify register is a really important skill, not only for the exam, but for work life, for social life. It's really important that you can get register right. So let's look at a few examples. We can grab a snack before the film if you're peckish. So to grab a snack and to be peckish are two examples of informal language. Peckish just means a little bit hungry. I first made his acquaintance at the medical conference is an example of formal register. To make someone's acquaintance is to meet someone for the first time. And he is looking into buying a new laptop. So the phrasal verb to look into something is neutral. You could use it in a wide variety of contexts. So, can you identify the register in these examples? Press pause and press play when you're ready to continue. So let's see how you got on with the task. It'll take me 5 minutes to rustle up a meal is an example of informal language. To rustle up a meal means to prepare or to make something to eat. She did her degree in Leeds and then found work there. This is neutral, so neither formal nor informal. And several people have lodged a complaint about the airline service. This is definitely formal language. So it means that people made a complaint about the service they received there. Now it's time for another task. So this task has two parts. First, look at the sentences and decide which are formal or informal. Pay particular attention to the words in blue as these give you the biggest clues about the register of the sentences. And secondly, rewrite each of the sentences, changing them from formal to informal or vice versa. This activity might be quite difficult for you, so use a dictionary to help if you need it. Press pause and press play again when you're ready to review. Again, in this activity, these are only suggested answers. There could be other ways of expressing appropriate register using other words. Let's do number 1 together. So, for example, the exam was dead easy in the end. So, dead easy is an example of informal English. So, in order to make it formal, you could say something like, the exam did not present much of a challenge in the end. So, press pause and go through numbers 2 to 6. Compare your answers and the register to the ones here, and then press play again when you're ready to wrap up. So that brings us to the end of the Collocations module. Thank you for taking the time to watch these 3 videos. I hope that they've been useful and that you've learnt a lot. Before I leave you, I'd like to just share my final thoughts. By now, your notebook should have a pretty good collection of collocations in it. So go through your notes and try to memorize the ones that you like, the ones that you think that could be most useful to you, or the ones that easily stick in your mind. The thing is, there are over 500,000 collocations in English. That is a crazy number. So you don't obviously need to learn all of these. You only need a select few to make a good impression on the examiners in your speaking and your writing. So be smart and be selective about the collocations that you try to commit to memory. Okay, so good luck with the practice task, and in case I don't see you again, good luck with the exam. I hope it goes really well on exam day. Well, that brings us to the end of the module on collocations. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you have learned a lot. Please don't forget to do all the practice activities and quizzes for each part to consolidate everything we have covered in these videos. By now, your notebook should be pretty full of collocations that could be useful in the exam as well as in real life. But your work does not end there, okay? The world is full of collocations. So every time you read a post on your socials, or you listen to a podcast, or you watch an episode of your favorite series, I promise you, you will find collocations there. So keep your eyes and ears open. Keep listening out for them, keep adding them to your notebook, and keep trying to integrate them into your speaking and your writing as much as possible. Getting good at collocations is a big and very important step in your journey to becoming fluent in English. Okay, so good luck with that. And in case I don't see you again, good luck for the exam too. I hope it goes really well on exam day.